Welcome to Wheels, Deals, and Meals, where we talk all things good food, good business, and good cars. And now, here is your host, Arnold Garcia, founder and CEO of Petra Automotive Products. Let's roll.
Man, I am excited to be in St. Augustine, Florida with Ed Roberts, who is quickly becoming, he's already one of my favorite persons, but quickly becoming a very good friend. I love this guy and thankful and grateful that he gave us the opportunity to come down to beautiful, sunny St. Augustine, Florida, Bozard Lincoln and Ford, and he is the Chief Operations Officer. Ed, thank you for having us here.
Arnold, thanks for coming. This is a pleasure. This is a real treat.
Appreciate it. Plus, you know, we both got the same haircut. We're ready to go. We know what to do. So listen, we're as you probably have seen, we're doing a fun podcast. We are going to talk about business, and we're going to talk about Ed, but let's talk about some fun stuff.
All right, sounds good.
What's your favorite car?
Favorite car? F-150.
F-150.
It is. So I'm not necessarily a motorhead, but I like my trucks for whatever reason.
How can you not be a motorhead?
I know. This all ties to it, though. It's a truck there as well.
Well, that's true.
Yes. So truck is Ford's DNA. So and Ford has always done me well. So F-150 is certainly top of the hill for me, for sure.
That's great. You know, I had an F-150, and I got to tell you, that back row is like a house.
It's almost like a couch.
You have so much room back there. It was great. So I can see how the F-150 would be your fun vehicle. Of all the places that you've traveled, anywhere around the world, in the U.S., everywhere, what's your favorite place?
Favorite place? I have a few, but if I had to pick a top one, it would probably be Rome, Italy. I've been there 3 times now, and every time there's just more to see. I'm not a history guy. So, and that place is full of history, but it's just very, very, very cool to go there and just see the different elements, because here in the U.S., we're hundreds of years old. Thank you.
Now we're talking, Ed.
Yes. That's what it's all about right there. Here in the U.S., we're a few hundred years old. They're thousands of years old. So just going over there and seeing that is just cool.
So what makes Rome so attractive? Just the fact that there is so much history that entices you, even though you're not a history guy? Or just the view, or
all of it. It's the attention to detail with all the sculpting and all the painting from Michelangelo. There's just so many different things without even tying in the history piece of it. And they build things to last for generations. We build things for our generation to enjoy. So it's just different. It's a different culture.
It is. You know, I've been to Rome a few times as well, and I always crack up when I go to many of these places that have all these old, you know, buildings. I mean, you know, 3,000, 2,000-year-old buildings, and the wall is still straight. And then, you know, you can build a new house today, and the sheetrock's doing the, you know, and you're like, huh? These guys had no instruments, you know, but they did have pride. And they were building it to last.
Absolutely.
I think your statement is pretty fair that we build things for the moment or this decade or generation, and then it's tear down and rebuild.
Absolutely. And they build things for generations to come.
For sure. All right. What about food? What's your favorite type of food?
I am a meat and potatoes kind of guy. So give me a big old fat porterhouse or prime rib, and I'm right at home. It doesn't matter what the sides are with it. I'm right at home there. Not necessarily the healthiest for us, but certainly what I enjoy.
You can see that I'm a picture of health. I'm going to make a podcast about exercising. But I'm with you. Steak and potatoes. It's the American way, right?
Absolutely.
So Ford, steak and potatoes, the American way.
Absolutely.
American way. What does Ed do for fun? Like when he wants to just relax, what is Ed doing?
So my release, a lot of people go to golf and they do different things. My release is jet skis. I like to just give it heck on the water and just let it all out. I got a couple of hot rod jet skis. It's a lot of fun to play with.
You go in the bay or you go out in the ocean?
Both. I don't go in the ocean as much, but any kind of intercoastal or river or lake or whatever is where I can have the most fun.
How often you get on it?
Not enough. I would love to be on them a lot more, but I'm on them a couple times a month. But that's my favorite release. Has been for coming up on 20 years now. I used to ride motorcycles till my daughter was born, and I replaced motorcycles with jet
Jet
skis.
skis.
It's motorcycle on
Your
water.
daughter join in that?
Oh yeah.
All right, good. How many kids you have, Ed?
I have one of my own and 3 stepkids, all
Great.
girls, and so they're all grown.
All girls. Well, that's good. That's good. That was good.
Yeah, got a little excitement that happens here when things take place. We got to make sure everything's still
I
working.
thought I was about to cuss, and it was the buzzer to stop me from cussing. All right, what do we have here?
So we have a Ford signature burger. The
This is one of the most popular plates.
it is one of the most popular plates here. This place is known for the 3 B's: the burgers, the bathrooms, and the beers. Speaking of F-150, we have a 150 F-150 beer list, 150 beers, 40 on tap, 110 in bottles and cans, and then the bathrooms. If you haven't checked them out, you have to before you get out of here. It's very cool.
Well, so I've done one of the 3 already.
Yes.
The bathroom before we started. Now we'll do the burger, and then before we go, we'll have a little beer to make sure we do the 3 B's. Well, I have a friend that lives in St. Augustine, and when I told him I was coming out, he said, "Man, you gotta get the burger. You have to get the burger." The Ford Cafe is a very well-recognized restaurant in this area. I mean, we got that from Uber drivers. We got that from my friend that lives here. Even some of our distributors have talked about this place. How did this idea come about to put a cafe, a restaurant, in between 2 big, very large dealerships?
Well, it's not just the restaurant. It's got some nostalgia to it, and that's what you're hearing from some of the others as well. But putting it here between the 2 places, when we decided that we was going to build a standalone Lincoln dealership, we wanted to drive some traffic to it, and we wanted to drive traffic to it without the pressure of typical sales. Man, they just keep bringing the good stuff there.
Man, wow.
Yeah. It does that. The Ford's Garage is a 20s service station themed restaurant. So everything in here is like a vehicle on the lift, different engines on stands, car parts on the wall, garage doors. Just everything ties to what we do.
The detail shop rags,
Hose
clamps.
Yeah.
I mean, the detail to what the theme and the detail to this restaurant is absolutely incredible and amazing.
Well, when you pay attention to details, now you're starting to tug on heartstrings, because if you just go through a process, you're just filling a void. But when you pay attention to details, then it's just like what you said. When you ask somebody about it, they don't. You got to go here, because the details.
It leaves an imprint.
Lasting
right?
impression.
So people are going, I remember that. Not only the food was great, the beer was great, but hey, the car, the motor, the restroom, the rags. I mean, all of a sudden you start taking space in that drive.
Exactly. And there's tons of little details that this place is laid out that you don't notice the first time you come here, and you find something different the next time you come, and something different the next time you come. And it's just those little things that keeps drawing you back.
That's great. That's fantastic. Look, before we keep going, I want to taste some of this food while it's hot.
Yeah. That's what it's all about, right?
Because that's part of the show too.
All right.
It's funny because we've gotten some great comments on the first couple of shows that we've put out, and one of the comments was, "Eat the food."
There you go.
All right, but you're gonna have some too. I'll cut a little piece here. The great thing about this is we make our camera guy jealous, because he's working while we get to take a little bit of bite of it.
He can drool. He can anticipate what it's going to be.
But then usually he'll get something at the end.
Right.
All right, let's see here. I think I messed this whole thing up here, but we'll try.
Oh, no, you're getting it. So you're hearing all the hype out there. Now that you're tasting it, does it live up to the hype?
That's incredible. That burger is absolutely delicious. That meat is delicious. Is that barbecue sauce?
This is barbecue sauce.
That is delicious.
Angus burger. 2/3 pound burger. It's just,
I wouldn't change anything to it.
it's one of the 3 B's. You got to get them right. Those are three things you got to get right.
It's like Mexican restaurant, right? Chips, margaritas, tortillas,
Exactly. Salsa,
salsa.
guac.
Absolutely delicious. So who created these menus? Did you hire somebody?
So,
How did you put what was in the menu?
so Ford's Garage is actually part of a restaurant group, 23 restaurant group. And it started from Mark Brown kind of being drawn to Henry Ford and so he wanted to do something to kind of tie those things together. And he's been in the restaurant business forever. So he just wanted to raise the level of different things, because it's one thing to go through a process to go eat. It's another thing to go to enjoy what you're doing and to have a presentation. And just look at the fun.
I know.
Just paying attention to detail on all
And the
of it.
flag.
Absolutely.
The burger is well built and tastes delicious. Like, I wouldn't take anything away. If I ordered this burger, I wouldn't say, like, don't do this or take this. It's perfect.
So if you would have changed something on it, instead of it saying Ford signature, it would have said custom built.
Oh, really?
So it had a flag that said custom built on it.
That's cool.
Yes.
Like a
Yes.
custom built car.
Exactly. Just paying attention to detail.
That's good. That's good. That's what gives you guys, not only gives you success here, but gives you success in business as well.
And then all the burgers on the menu is named after somebody that's prominent in the community. So,
In this community right here.
absolutely.
So give me an idea, like who?
Well, Fred Bozard's on there, and Jeff King's on there. Our fire marshal's on there. So
He
it's-
must love that. That's the
absolutely.
way to get the approval on the fire permits.
It ties everything together. But those are the ones that keeps the community going. And so you want to recognize them. You want to give them the credit where credit's due. Because certainly they get challenged when things don't go well. But more times than not, things do, and they don't get the credit.
And it's an honor. It's
an
you're
absolute-
honoring them for what they do by having the burgers named after them. And I'm sure they love that and enjoy it, and I'm sure their family sees some recognition
Absolutely.
in it for them. All right, let's taste this little cheesecake here. Or key lime pie.
Key lime. And key lime, to me, is the best dessert there is.
Listen, you got to have the crust, right?
I'm thinking you got to have a little cream to go with it.
This cheesecake, like we're saying cheesecake, this key lime pie is delicious. Like, for real lime. Not a little bit of lime. This is key lime pie.
If you're going to have key lime pie, it's got to be key lime pie. So,
Sometimes you order that,
depends on where you're at in the country.
and it's lightly.
Yes.
Tastes more like condensed milk instead of lime. This is lime. That was good.
But speaking of attention to detail, onion rings on an oil funnel. Presentation.
I know. And oil funnel with onion rings. That's detail. And memorable. Again, we talk about memorable. Everybody, food can be good. We interviewed Jeff Master from Steak 48, who also was Master's previous owner. I'm sure you've been in one of his restaurants. And he often mentioned the experience that the customer must have at the level of their restaurant. This,
Memorable.
is memorable. The truck on top of the bar, the wheels that are moving, right?
The horn that blew a few minutes
details.
ago, yeah.
The horn that blew, the engines around.
Smoke will come out at times as well.
Oh, will it?
Yes.
Like every hour or something like that?
They have control of it, but yeah, when different things happen, when it's somebody's birthday, large tip, whatever, different things they'll set it off.
This is phenomenal. You guys thinking about opening any more? Or one's enough? Restaurant business is tough.
One's enough for now. We're a landlord. So we don't own and run the restaurant. We own the property, but we're tied to it. Their core values ties so well in with ours, and so we're business partners. We're partners in the community. We're partners here on property, and everything that they do helps us, and what we do helps them, and it's just a partnership.
So before we talk about Ed, tell me about Bozard. How long has it been in the community? How long has Bozard Ford or Lincoln been around?
Bozard Ford was established in 1949, and we're in our third generation. And in the last let's call it 12 years now, this place has grown immensely. We just did a video to talk about the history of Bozard. It's a very cool video. I'll show it to you before you get out of here. In between the second and third generation, there was a bridge owner, but it was a family member because the second generation, unfortunately, had a diagnosis that took them before they was ready, before their time. And Bo was still in high school. Third generation still in high school at that point. So had a bridge owner for a period of time, but would never any point of it leaving the family. And so now it's back 100% within the family and onwards and upwards.
Wow.
It's always on the gas.
So many years. Did it start with the Ford or Lincoln? I think you mentioned Lincoln, right?
Started with Ford Mercury,
Ford Mercury, okay.
and then we added the Lincoln franchise in 2007, late 2007, and then Mercury went away in 2011. So we've been Ford Lincoln since 2012.
And then you have us being from the service side, or me, I know you have a lot of that too, but you have one of the largest Quicklane quick lubes, or the largest?
So from a square footage, we're not the largest, but from a volume, we are the largest. We're the largest service center for Ford in the country and the largest Quicklane from a volume standpoint for Ford in the country.
In St. Augustine, Florida.
In little bitty old St. Augustine, Florida.
That's fantastic.
That's connected with the community and making the community our family. Growing our family.
That's amazing. I know you've given me the tour before, and I've gone to visit the Quicklane as well as your shop. It's a phenomenal shop. The culture here is incredible. That is directly tied to the management of the team, right? It all starts at the top. So that means that you and your co-partners have instituted the culture that makes this place so successful. And you can feel it, you can hear it, you can talk to people in the shop. We talked to that Cuban guy, remember? And you can just see their happiness and how they're part of the team and feel like they're part of the team.
Well, truly, it does start at the top. The key part of that, and a lot of times we talk about it, but we don't necessarily execute it. But the key to it is sharing the vision, having a path to where you want to go, and share that, and they will help you get there. But to think that it happens automatically, it doesn't. But if you share that vision, if you know where you want to go and you share it, everybody will jump on board and help you get there.
It is. You give them a vision. I was talking to somebody the other day about how to, I was invited to speak at this event, and they wanted me to talk about how you scale, right? And I said, well, first thing is vision, right? The people at the top have to have the vision. Vision is long term. Vision is we're here today, and 30 years from now, I want to be here. And then you have the goal settings in between to get you to this vision.
Exactly.
You got to convince the people all along the way to hop on this train, on the right seat, the importance of it, join the culture to get you here.
And you got to convince them that it's achievable.
That's right.
And one of the things to scaling is release and control. If we control everything, we'll hold back. But if we release the control and give them the control with guidelines, then it's easier to scale.
So true. We talked about that as well, because we said, these us A-type personalities, we come in, we know who to hire, and some of them are our friends or people that we've known in the industry. So we put the right people in, we hired the right people. But one of the biggest problems that type A personality people have is letting them do their job, exactly. Right? We want to get involved. Listen, if you hired that person to do a job, let it go and let them do the job.
Absolutely.
That's going to make you successful. Don't micromanage them. Be there to help, be there to support. But it's so true, because sometimes CEOs, COOs, I'm in there too, get in the way.
We don't have all the answers. So if you get out of the way to release the little control, you may learn something along the way as well.
Yeah. Maybe it's not always the way that we did it. I remember that I hired a very prominent person in the industry. And a couple of days in, probably a couple of weeks in, he calls me up and he goes, hey, are we okay? I said, yeah, why? He goes, I haven't heard from you. I said, did you call me? He said, no. I said, well, why am I calling you? He said, well, at the old company, they would call me every day. I had to do a report at the end of the day, blah, 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 blah. I said, listen, I hired you. I know how good you are. Go get the job done. If I need you, I'm going to call you. You need me, you call me. I'm here for you, but I'm not going to babysit you.
You had trust in him and you empowered him.
That's right. And he has been phenomenal. At the other company, he always was phenomenal.
He's constrained.
The other company just held him back.
Yes.
Yep. And you got to let these guys go and blossom. But we want them to grow and be better than us. It's almost like kids, right? You want them to be better than you.
leading people is a lot like kids, like raising kids. We don't. A lot of times when our employees make a mistake, we just want to go wring their neck or run them off or do whatever. Well, think how many times that it took for you to teach a kid how to ride his bike. Did you scream at it? Did you do what? No, you encourage them to do better. And if we do that with our people, they will continue to prosper. They will continue to grow. So leading people is a lot like parenting, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about Ed. The story of Ed, starting from when Ed had hair. Or maybe not, maybe even before that again. So Ed, how did you get in the automotive business?
Like most people, by accident. And I came from very humble beginnings. And I bumped into a guy, and he was a service director at one of the local dealerships in Jacksonville. And I told him, I said, hey man, never had a job before. I need somebody to give me an opportunity. And he said, sure, I'll give you an opportunity. Come by and see me. And he gave me his card, and I set up an appointment, went by and seen him a few days later. And he hired me to be a tech apprentice. Told him I had tools. I didn't have anything. But what I had was drive, and I was going to find a way to have some tools by the time I started. And so he told me once he hired me that he says, "I want you to come in Monday. I'll put you with this person." And
Now, how old were you at the time?
I was 18.
18.
And he says, "I won't be on vacation, so you have to come in and see my assistant." Well, I showed up that Monday to see his assistant. And as I said, I come from humble beginnings, so I looked like a hoodlum. I was living on the streets and just trying to find a way to get by. And I showed up there, and the guy had to make a judgment call. He looks at me, I look like a hoodlum, and he's thinking, there's no place for you here. And that's what he told me. And leading up to that, my family had said that you can't make it out there in the real world. You're not one of those guys. You're not going to. And I just felt like there was a better way. There was a different way to do things. And then I show up there, and I'm trying to convince him. You don't have to. Your boss already gave me the job. I'm supposed to start here with you today. And I'm sorry. I don't have a spot here for you. So
the guy that hires you is gone the day you start, and the person that was left there says, there's no job for you?
No job for me. And then I'm sitting out there, and I leave. And I try to convince the guy for about 20 minutes, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And so I'm sitting out there at the traffic light, waiting to leave. And I'm listening, it's replaying back in my mind, my family saying, you can't make it out there in the real world. You're not one of those people. And the other side of me saying, don't give up yet. Don't give up yet. I would have had to turn left to go back home. I chose to turn right and say, let's go see if there's something else out there. And because that was at a car dealer, I figured I'd try another car dealer. And I pulled into the next car dealer I seen. I made a couple of right turns, made a right out of there, went down the next traffic light, made a right turn, and pulled into another car dealer. Never been there before, didn't know anybody there. And went out and met the service director at that store and told him that, hey, I was supposed to start over here, and car dealers are competitive. So they're thinking, well, if they almost hired him, and heck, I'll get him before they try to get him back. So from that competitive atmosphere, they gave me a chance. And that's all I needed. And the rest is, we can call it history, but the rest was, let me push as hard as I can, soak up everything that I can, let me be an ongoing learner forever.
Okay, so 18, you started as a technician. What's the next position?
Started as an apprentice tech at 18, then I grew into being my own technician. So I was on my own 6 weeks into it. A year and a half into it, I was running a group in the shop. I was a team leader in the shop.
Okay, a year into it.
Year and a half into it.
Okay.
And then a few years later, I went, at that time, Quicklanes wasn't widespread, but we had opened one of three of them, 5 miles from the dealer, one of the first three, and had the opportunity to go down and run that store. And went down and worked the shop initially as a shop foreman, and then moved into running the store, and got recruited by Ford Motor Company, went to work for Ford.
So lead, team lead.
Yep, technician, team leader.
Shop foreman at the Quick Lube.
Yep.
And then
Store manager.
Store manager at the Quick Lube.
Yep.
And then Ford recruits you.
And Ford recruits me in the late 90s. So at that point, I was still mid-20s. And at that point, from where I came from, I'm thinking, I've arrived. I got this big old giant company chasing after me. I've arrived. Little did I know I hadn't arrived, but in my mind I did. So ended up going to work for Ford, moved to Michigan, had fun there, and it is very gray for 7-8 months out of the year, and everybody thinks that's why I left. But I was there for a couple of years, and my dad had gotten sick while I was there, and someone needed to be close to my mom. So I moved back to take care of my mom. Didn't necessarily have to live with her, but just be close by. So I moved back to take care of her, left the Ford career behind, and came back into the dealership world. And been back home ever since. I lived in the Carolinas and Atlanta since, because all that's really close around. My mom's still here. I'm blessed to still have her. And just kept my foot on the gas.
Something good just happened.
Yes. Kept my foot on the gas, learned everything I could, and really paid a lot of attention to and did a lot of research and understanding of generational differences so I can relate to different people.
Okay, so when you moved back to take care of your mom, what did you do for a job? Still Ford?
Back to the same Ford dealership.
Back at the same Ford dealership, managing that quickly?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I'll dive a little deeper into that. A lot of times we get stuck when we hit hurdles or roadblocks, and we think, well, I tried. And I'm not necessarily one that takes no for an answer. When someone tells me no, I don't hear no, I hear not yet. And I think you and I have had that conversation before. And so I'm about to have my first kid, and I get a phone call. And at that point, the store had been bought by a corporation. And so I was working for a corporation now. And I get a phone call shortly after I was back, and we're talking about a couple things. And that corporation had quarterly performance group meetings, and it was mandatory. And this particular meeting ended up being about 250 miles away. And it was on the same day that my daughter was due. And so I'm talking with the regional guy. He calls me, and we're talking about some stuff or whatever. And we're just about to hang up. And then he said, hang on just a minute. And then he says, no, I'll just talk to you next week when you come to the performance group meetings. I said, well, about next week. I won't be there. So it's time for my daughter to be born. And he asked a couple questions, and I told him. And he says, well, if she goes into labor, you can just leave. And I said, no, you don't understand. As I said, I come from humble beginnings. So my family life was quite a bit bumpy during the early years, and I wanted to live a different life there. And I told him, I said, no, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to take that chance. I'm going to be here. So I'll catch you on the next one. He says, Ed, if you don't show up at that meeting, you won't have a job to come back to. Well, I'm done talking to you, and I won't be there. And I hung up the phone. And I never worked another day for that company. So we all get running roadblocks and hurdles and speed bumps.
For sure.
And you can let them define you.
A test of your character.
Exactly. You can let them define you, or you can define yourself and break apart from it. And I don't hold nothing against that guy. Because
but you had to do what was right for you and your family.
Absolutely. And he was doing what he thought that corporation wanted him to do. So that was their rules, and he was trying to enforce them. And those rules didn't align. And if they don't align, then you got to do something different.
So now you're about to have a baby and have no job.
Have no job. About to have a baby. I bought a franchise. I was a tool guy for a little while. And so she was born on her due date. So I would have been at the meeting when it all happened.
So you were a tool guy going around selling tools to technicians? Bought a little route?
Bought her out.
Franchise truck?
Yep. And did that for 3 years. I bought a dead route.
I never knew that about you. That's a good one that we got out today.
Yes. Yes. I bought a route that had been dead for about 10 years, so there's a lot of warranty and stuff out when you first get out there. But that was never my intent, was to stay in that. That was just something to bridge a gap. I didn't know what was all going to take place first time being a parent. But I wasn't going to sit around. And just learning experience. But then I sold the tool franchise 3 years into it, made some money doing that, and got back in the dealership world and spent a little time at a Toyota store in South Carolina. Just at that time, I wanted to see what some of the other brands was. And you learn that they're all mechanical, they're all going to break, they're all going to have their issues. It's just the different manufacturers handle them differently. Uh, lived in the Carolinas for about 5 years, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Atlanta, and moved back during the recession in 2008. Moved back to Florida because now it's getting time for my daughter to go to school. And St. Johns County, the county that we're in here today, it's got the #1 school district in the state of Florida and has for quite some time. So not being able to find what I wanted to do there and be comfortable with her school, trying to give her a better platform than what I had, I moved back to Florida and been back since 2008. And what most people don't know, when I first moved back, it was deep into the recession. Stores are closing. You know what was going on during all that time. I was going to come back and just stock shelves at Walmart, just have something to do. And a friend of mine was working here at Bozard Ford as a service director, and he says, if you're going to do anything, come down here and work for me. What do you want me to do? Come down and work on cars. I haven't worked on cars in 10 years. It's like riding a bike, you don't forget. So I did. Came down here and I worked at this store for a year as a technician. And I was being recruited by some other stores in Jacksonville and finally relented to that and went up there in late 2009, worked at another store for about 3 years, and came back down here as a fixed
Working
ops
as a
director.
technician over there.
Nope, fixed ops director.
Fixed up direction.
Moved back into the leadership role. And then left there, came back down here as a fixed ops director 3 years later. And we took this place at that point from 43 employees to what it is today at 331.
A little growth.
Just a little bit. That's the painting the vision and giving them a path to get there, making modifications along the way, but never losing sight of what that vision is.
So you become this rock star fixed operations guy. How long did you do that, and what was your next position?
My next position is the current position I'm in today. Well, I was fixed ops guy here as we was going through all that growth, and as we're going through all that, you don't go from 43 employees to 330 without expanding the facility. So was managing some construction, different elements of that before our CFO came on. He took some of those responsibilities and allowed me to refocus on building the team that could continue to grow fixed ops here. Because we didn't go out and chase anybody and find somebody to replace me. We grew somebody from within to be able to pick up my role. And I became the chief operations officer here. And Jeff King and I run the store now. I handle everything operations. He handles anything from a marketing standpoint. Because at 331 employees, you really got to share those responsibilities at the top to be effective at it. And we both feed off each other very well. When you build a team, you should build a team to complement the areas that you're not good at. A lot of times we get stuck. I got to find somebody just like me. Find somebody that makes you better, and that's what Jeff and I do for each other. We make each other better.
Yeah, it's the go-to is always to find somebody just like you, similar in personalities, and that's great. You guys become great buddies and go to lunch, but you still have some deficits. Instead, we should always hire somebody that fills the deficits, and together we're better.
Absolutely. Together we're a team.
Together we're a team.
And
we have a distributor in Costa Rica who used to say, juntos somos la mayoría, which means together we're the majority.
there you go.
Together we're the majority, which is true. Not me, not you, but together, my strength and your strength, we're the majority and we can make this happen.
You look at it from a sports standpoint, I don't care how good Tom Brady is. If he didn't have a team around him, he'd get pummeled.
If you didn't have somebody to throw the ball to,
Or somebody to block for it.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't work.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, sports and business do have a lot that are similar, right? To work in team. That's why people that have played sports sometimes, not always, but typically, make good employees because they get the team, they get the coach aspect, right? So they're pretty good in that world. And your Ford store in the U.S., what number is it?
Year to date, we're 11th year to date in St. Augustine. The last 2 months we've been in the top 10, and our goal is to finish inside the top 10 this year. But that's not where we want to be. Someone has to be number one, and there's no reason why it can't be us. We may not be number one this year, but we're going to be number
There's
one.
no reason why you can't be number one. The top 10 ain't shabby either, but I get you. That's the goal. There's a vision.
Exactly. So there's 3,100 Ford stores, and 10, 11 years ago, we was probably somewhere around 2,800 position, maybe 2,900 position. So we've moved a little bit there too.
Yeah.
And moving to the top 10 is pretty cool, but good's not good enough.
That's right.
There's always opportunity
Don't
to get
get
better.
content.
Exactly.
That's the enemy of success, right? Content. I'm happy here. It's all good. What do you? Because you talk about a humble beginning, and a lot of people, interestingly enough, a lot of successful people. Not everybody was handed to, right? And it seems that those that are really good at what they do typically came from very humble, worked their way up. Sometimes not even college, right? They were the streets. You know, well, as you grew up, as you went through this, so when you started 18 to now, how many years have gone by? How long have you been in the automotive business?
31 years last week.
Okay, so I'm 32 this May.
There you go.
So 31 years, in those 31 years, what would you say are 3 characteristics that made Ed successful? What are 3 things you learned, 3 things that you can look, if I look back at this, there are these 3 things that I think brought me from A to Z.
Surround yourself with people that will always challenge you, because if you're not challenged, you won't grow. You'll get content. So, and that sounds cliche-ish. If you're not being challenged, you won't grow. So, if you're not being challenged, you're not surrounding yourself with the right people. It might be time to change your friends. Then another one is never stop learning. I mean, there's so much opportunity to learn from other people's successes and mistakes. And when you can learn from theirs and continue to enhance those things, and you can do things that nobody thought was possible. And then the third one is embracing the generational differences. I mean, the Gen Zs and the millennials, they've gotten so much flack about they're not this, they're not that. Well, guess what? We're not cavemen anymore either. We're not what we used to be. So understanding those generational differences and being able to relate to them and connecting with them on the levels that they want you to connect with them on, those guys will make it happen. I mean, just look around this place. 2/3 of my staff is 30 or less. Technical staff is 30 or less of my technicians. And then 60% of the entire dealership staff is millennials or younger. And we get it done. So we can say that those guys don't get it done, those generations will never get there. You got to find ways to connect with them.
It's a good point. I'm sure when we were 31 years ago starting out, somebody was saying, these guys, you know.
Exactly. I don't know what they hired him for.
I don't know why they hired him, you know. They're crazy. So, okay, so let me go back. So you surround yourself with the right people.
People will challenge you.
Right? Always be learning.
Always be learning.
And embrace the generational gap, maybe /change. Embrace change.
Exactly.
Right?
It's change management.
Because in our world, it changes constantly.
Exactly.
Constantly.
This is an old article, but I read an article about 10 years ago that it said 20 years previous, it took 19 years for a change of time. And at that time frame 10 years ago, at that time it said it took 19 months for a change in time. Well, it's certainly advanced since then.
Yeah,
so
it's right. 1.9 months. I don't know. You know, it's like, it changes fast.
It does.
Fast. And you got to be, you talk about constantly learning. I'm always, reading every magazine and article in our industry, talking to everybody I can, people like you, because it is changing. It is changing. You got to be ready. You got to be ready to pivot at any time to continue that kind of success. Do you think, as we talk about generational, right? And I've asked this question to a lot of people that I've interviewed. Is there a difference, though, from the workforce of the past to now?
There is.
I know you're saying let's embrace it, right?
Yeah,
it is what it is. We embrace it.
Let's talk about that a little bit. A baby boomer. A baby boomer will work a job until he retires, or he or she retires. And then, depending on when they started, if they start early enough, they may work a second job until they retire. Well, millennials and Zs, they don't see themselves doing the same thing 10 years from now, no matter what position they're in. So yes, it is totally different. And so they're always, they need to find something that allows them to be fulfilled. And so baby boomer, if they was employed, they was fulfilled. Today, if the two generations aren't challenging themselves a bit with trying something new, they're not being fulfilled. So you always got to give them that opportunity. And that's one of the key reasons why we try to grow from within, because it's always challenging. They got to put themselves in the best position to be the next one to move up. And we can disrupt that very easy if we can go out and hire a ringer on the outside and bring them in front of people. And then that tells them that, hey, I wasn't good enough. That I don't know what I'm working so hard for. So you got to be committed to it when you do that. But when you are, it gives them the chance to chase after something that bigger than what they thought they could be as well. And that's what they need to keep moving forward.
You think it's more difficult to hire today than it was before?
It is, because there's so much information out there now. And the
Information in what way? Like information about the employee?
everything. So everything you talk about in the interview, they now have something to compare it to. They pull up their phone and they look this up. They look at salary, look at this, position, job description. Everything is there, and they compare. Well, that's not. We talked about something different or whatever else. And I mean, just before the smartphone,
The constant or the instant information.
yeah,
Immediate information.
before that, it's the conversation. It's, hey, well, let's agree on this, and here's the deal, and let's roll. So now, if it's something different than what the normal position is, you got to talk about that. Hey, we're not going to be what you find. This is what we do. We want to be different. We want to define these roles to be different, because we can do what we've always done, or what those positions has always done, and stay the same, that we get the same result that we've always gotten. In order to get something different, you got to paint that picture differently. So yes, you have to interview, and you got to chase that candidate differently than you did before, because there's so much information out there. But then also, rather than not embracing the information, you have to accept it and express it. And when you do, there's still tons of opportunity there that we haven't unleashed yet. And I mean, just look at what we do here. We write 300 repair orders a day, sell over 700 vehicles a month in a town that's got 14,000 people in it, and a county that's just now surpassed the 200,000 mark. We way outsell our market, because our people aren't thinking that, well, there's not enough there. What they're thinking is, I can always do better than what I did yesterday. I could be a better version of myself. And when you get 330 of them thinking that way, it's a fun ride.
That train's in motion.
That train's in motion.
When you get 300 people going that same route, the train's in motion. In fact, I think one of your Henry Ford signs in the restroom says something to that effect.
Yes.
You know, when you get everybody together, you know, nobody's stopping you. Ed, you just wrote a book. What's it called?
Mile One, an endless journey to effective leadership.
So why the name Mile One?
That goes back to the beginning, and early on it wasn't called Mile One, but in the beginning, starting out, I didn't have any training to be a technician, none of that stuff, and 6 weeks into it, I'm a technician. I'm handed a repair order and says, go fix this car. And to me, I'm looking at that as an unsurmountable task. How do I do that? And I learned very early on that if I break things down into the simplest steps, then it's easy to see it being achievable. And I carried that throughout my career, and I instill that in my people. When they find something that they feel like they can't get done, that's more than what they're capable of, we break it down. And so take a big old giant budget, and you break it down. And it's not, so that's a year. Then you break it down. A lot of times you break it down in a month. If you break it down into weeks and days, and not just the days then, but then even break it down to what the person's got to contribute, and then share that with the person, and they see themselves doing it. That's easy. We get there. So this looks like an unsurmountable number. When it breaks it all the way down, that's easy. Well, when you do that, your next thing that you need to do is your next Mile One. And there's no Mile Two, because it's always the next thing that you need to do. So it's breaking things down into the simplest form and knowing what it is. And I challenge my people all the time. If I come in and say, hey, what do you got going on today? And they say, well, we're going to do that. They don't have a plan. And truly, if you don't have a plan for the day will have a plan for you.
For sure.
And
it'll consume you.
I want to know what their Mile One is. I want to know what they want to get done today.
So your Mile One is almost like, what is your step one?
Exactly.
What's the first thing you're going to target and get and finish, accomplish?
And it's an endless journey, because let's say you accomplish 2,000 of those.
Yeah.
There's still more you can work on.
That's right.
So it's an endless journey. So everything is the next step, the next step, the next step.
You know, I'm always talked about the enemy of success is content. People that, and I say this in my service advisor training classes, right? You know, people that go, hey, I'm happy making X money. I got my little Ford Mustang and I go home and I play Xbox. I'm happy, leave me alone. Enemy of success,
Exactly.
right?
If you feel like you are,
And you're saying a lot of that. You're saying we don't want people to be content.
absolutely.
There's
not.
always something more to do and a way to do it better.
So if you're number one in something, let's take that. And the number one doesn't mean that you're the best. It means that you're outperforming the rest at that moment. But how many of them's chasing you? Every single one of them. And if they're chasing you and you back off, at some point they're going to catch you. Well, just like racing. You don't run the last lap because you're in the first spot. You run the last lap like everybody's trying to take it away from you.
Right.
And that's the same thing. You got to keep going.
And just because you won this race, next race is a whole new race.
Exactly.
Just because you were number one here doesn't mean you're going to be number one here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think successful people have that, so much of that in common. Well, Ed, we appreciate you being on. We love you. You got a great success. We love your smile, your character, how you're always willing to give advice and help people. I think it's what makes you successful, part of your character. See, even they're applauding it.
Absolutely.
But we appreciate you being here. Thank you for giving me the time. We're going to take a little break and we'll end it with a little beer toast.
Sounds good.
All right.
It's been awesome. Thank you, Arnold.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Ed, Jeff, Stanton. Jeff, your counterpart, Stanton, customer. Thank you for letting us be here. I wish you guys continued success. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep changing. Keep being the best. You're going to be number one.
It's an absolute honor.
Thank you. Cheers. 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 That's good. That's good too.
Thank you for listening to Wheels, Deals, and Meals, your main source for all things good and fun, business, food, and cars. If you like this episode, make sure to rate us and subscribe. If you would like to be a guest on our show, please leave a message at the link below. Till next time, happy eating!